Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. You ever watch a man implode on live TV while desperately trying not to confess to a federal crime? Because that's exactly what we just saw. Pete Hegseth, Trump's hand-picked WikiLeaks himself, got lit up in a congressional grilling and all but admitted to leaking classified military intel over an unclassified Signal chat. This wasn't just humiliating, it was potentially criminal. And the cherry on top, he did it with that smug, untouchable attitude, dodging accountability like it was a core duty in his job description. But oh, it gets worse. We've got Republicans tripping over themselves to run cover for him. We've got slip-ups about a top-secret invasion of Greenland plan. And we've got Trump's approval numbers sinking faster than a tank in quicksand. Strap in, because what you're about to see is the MAGA military-industrial complex melting down in real time. And trust me, we've got the receipts. Pete Hegseth just pulled the national security equivalent of hitting reply all with the nuclear launch codes. This wasn't some junior staffer getting busted for forwarding cat memes on a government server. This was Donald Trump's own defense secretary, a Fox News MAGA loudspeaker turned Pentagon boss, getting absolutely torched by Rep. Seth Moulton for leaking military launch times over Signal. And not just any Signal chat, an unclassified one. Let's get real. When you're talking combat operations, especially against groups like the Houthis, every second matters. Launch timing isn't harmless chatter. It's life or death intelligence. And where did Hegseth get this little gem? He all but admitted it, choking on his own words, CENTCOM. That's Central Command, the people whose communications are by definition classified from the jump. And here's the bombshell. If you're taking classified launch data and blasting it out on an unsecured channel, you're not just being sloppy. You're breaking federal law. That's not oops territory. That's felony territory, handcuffs territory. But what does Hegseth do? He pirouettes around the truth, spews a steaming pile of word salad, and acts like answering a straight question is some deep state trap. This is the guy Trump trusted to oversee the U.S. military, a man who can't even give a coherent answer about classification markings without sweating through his suit. If this is what MAGA calls strength, then God help us, because the only thing Pete Hegseth launched with precision was a full-blown national security scandal live on camera. Let's drill into one of the most predictable and dangerous patterns we've seen with Trump's political appointees. Pete Hegseth might as well be the case study, an almost pathological refusal to take responsibility, even when the evidence is undeniable and the entire country is watching. Here's how it went down. During a congressional hearing, Rep. Seth Moulton laid out the facts, clear, damning, and airtight. Hegseth, now Trump's Secretary of Defense thanks to the loyalty over competence hiring policy, was confronted with a national security bombshell that he'd leaked classified military launch times over an unclassified Signal chat. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't speculation. This was a direct threat to operational security. So Moulton asked the simplest possible question. If the DoD Inspector General finds a breach, will you take responsibility? That's where any leader with an ounce of integrity would have said, if I made a mistake, I'll own it. But not Hegseth. Instead, we got the full MAGA gymnastics routine. A yes or no question morphed into a fog of deflection. He ducked. He dodged. He hid behind the success of the mission. He pointed fingers at the previous administration. He even wrapped himself in the flag, as if serving at the pleasure of the president somehow makes him untouchable. And here's the thing. This isn't some isolated bad day. This is the MAGA playbook in action. From Trump lying about the election, to cabinet members stonewalling subpoenas, to Hegseth acting like national security leaks don't count unless someone else confirms them. The formula is always the same. Never admit fault, never apologize, and weaponize patriotism as a shield against accountability. What's infuriating here isn't just the arrogance, it's the blatant nature of it. Hegseth essentially admitted the intel came straight from CENTCOM, intel that is automatically classified from the second it's generated. But when pressed, he wouldn't even acknowledge whether the material carried classification markings, despite DoD rules that require them on every single one of these communications. Instead, he hemmed, he hawked, he tried to stall out the clock or muddy the waters. And let's be real, that's the only card left to play when you're caught dead to rights. Confuse, deflect, delay. But this isn't just dishonorable, it's dangerous. The laws around classified material aren't there to protect political egos. They're there to protect American lives. Every time operational details get leaked, whether by malice or incompetence, someone in uniform is put at risk, period. And Hegseth knows this. He's not some clueless rookie. Yet instead of owning his failure, he treated Congress like an annoyance for daring to ask questions he didn't feel like answering. And that right there is the culture Trump built, where accountability is a corpse, public service is replaced by performance, and those entrusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets treat constitutional oversight like an irritating podcast interview. Hegseth's evasiveness isn't just cowardice, it's a warning flare. It's proof of how fragile our systems become when loyalty to a political cult replaces loyalty to the country. When a Secretary of Defense can dodge every question about leaking classified data without breaking a sweat, that's not leadership. That's theater. And the stakes aren't theoretical. They're life and death. Because if this recklessness isn't checked now, next time it won't just be a launch time whispered over signal. It'll be something even more catastrophic. And by then, it will be far too late. If you want proof of just how far Pete Hegseth has fallen in the eyes of Congress, look no further than the bipartisan beatdown he took in that hearing. This wasn't Democrats piling on for sport. This was lawmakers from both parties making it crystal clear. This man is unfit to lead, and his continued presence at the Department of Defense is a direct threat to America's credibility and security. Take Rep. Salud Carbajal. He didn't just voice disappointment, he incinerated Hegseth in real time. This wasn't polite disagreement. This was full-blown disgust. You're not worthy of my attention or my questions. In a chamber built on decorum, that's political napalm. You only hear that when someone has so thoroughly lost the confidence of their peers that even engaging with them feels like legitimizing the nonsense. And Carbajal wasn't a lone voice. Multiple members on both sides of the aisle echoed the same sentiment. The word resignation came up more than once. They called him a disgrace, an embarrassment, and a dangerous political pawn, and they were right. This wasn't partisan theater. It was a bipartisan alarm bell that someone this reckless and incompetent is sitting at the very top of America's military command. Think about what it takes for Washington to agree on anything, let alone call for a resignation. In a town where they can't settle on lunch, a consensus formed around one fact. Pete Hegseth has to go. His botched handling of the signal leak scandal, his evasive testimony, his incoherent answers to serious national security questions, it all painted the same picture. He's not cut out for this job. And here's the bigger truth. When a lawmaker says, "You're not worthy of my questions," they're not just shredding Hegseth. They're indicting the system that put him there. They're calling out Trump's governing philosophy, which prizes loyalty and TV clout over expertise and competence. Hegseth wasn't chosen for his qualifications. He was chosen because he played a soldier on Fox News. Now faced with real responsibility, he's crumbling in full public view. This is MAGA leadership distilled. Performative, brittle, and allergic to accountability. When even Republicans are calling for your head, it's not just politics, it's a fire alarm. Pete Hegseth should have resigned before that hearing adjourned. And if there's any integrity left in the system, he won't be sitting in that chair much longer. Because America can't afford a Secretary of Defense who can't even defend his own decisions, let alone the country. Just when you thought this hearing couldn't spiral any further into chaos, Pete Hegseth casually drops a line so absurd it sounds like it was ripped straight from a rejected Veep script. The Pentagon has contingency plans involving Greenland. Yes, Greenland. Not Iran, not North Korea, not cyber warfare or space defense. Greenland. Welcome to the MAGA-era fever dream of foreign policy, where manifest destiny gets a reboot and diplomacy is replaced with delusion. Now, if you've been following Trump's bizarre fixation with buying Greenland, you know this isn't completely out of the blue. But for the Secretary of Defense to even hint that there are operational plans to take territory by force, that's not just tone deaf. It's a diplomatic grenade with the pin already pulled. And the best part, Hegseth didn't even seem to realize what he'd said. He stumbled through it like a man reading from a classified Mad Libs sheet, and the reaction in the room was instant panic. Even Republicans scrambled. One congressman all but jumped out of his seat to say, "That's not your testimony today, right?" You could practically hear the collective GOP blood pressure spike as they tried to stuff the crazy back in the bottle before the headlines started screaming, "Pentagon eyes Greenland invasion." But here's the thing. This wasn't just a gaffe. It was a symptom of a leadership culture so detached from reality, so intoxicated by Trump-era nationalism that it doesn't even comprehend the consequences of its own words. These people aren't just clowns. They're dangerous. They joke about invasions, blur the line between diplomacy and aggression, and then act shocked when the world stops taking them seriously. And let's be clear, Hegseth wasn't supposed to say this out loud. It wasn't a policy rollout. It was an accidental reveal, a glimpse behind the curtain at how reckless and unserious the thinking really is. That's why Republicans practically slapped a "do not publish" sticker on the transcript in real time, because even they knew how insane it sounded. Even they knew it could blow up into an international mess. So yes, it was jaw-dropping. Yes, it was ridiculous, but it was also revealing. It proved yet again that Trump's appointees aren't seasoned strategists or skilled diplomats. They're reality TV personalities cosplaying as statesmen. And every time they go off script, they remind the world just how close we are to turning U.S. foreign policy into a MAGA punchline. Thanks for riding through this deep dive into the chaos, incompetence, and sheer absurdity of today's political circus. If you yelled at the screen, laughed in disbelief, or just shook your head, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe. Your support keeps us holding the powerful to account with facts, fire, and a little sarcasm. We're not done yet, and with your help, we never will be. See you in the next one.